So India's 5-year plan. So India's 5-year plan, as I mentioned, two phases. The era of centralized planning from 1951 till 1991. This was highly inspired by Soviet Russian model. Centralized planning, inward looking, import substitution strategies, self-reliance. Focusing where the public sector will lead the economy, private will have a limited role, regulated, license Raj, inspector Raj. This was also an era where government would focus on heavy industries, industrialization, rapid growth. Also at the same time, there were 4 planning goals. What are the 4 planning goals? Growth, modernization, self-reliance, and social justice. So always remember these 4 plan will be part of that. So growth means increase the size of GDP, more production, more creation of more resources, create opportunities. So growth is about, maybe GDP growth, economic growth. Modernization was mainly about technology adoption, making technological modernization, technological development. India opens IITs and IIMs and technical centers and center excellence institutes. PSIR institutes were created. So multiple institutes were created. For that, we are able to attain modernization in the field of industries also, in the field of agriculture also, and thereby maybe transform India to a developed economy in long run. And for that, you needed technology. The third was self-reliance, which focused on import substitution. Even today, we are focusing on that. So import substitution, आपका जो अगला approach रहेगा, and fourth is social justice, that people who are weak and vulnerable, they need to be given an opportunity to come to the front. So there will be a more directed program for them. For example, in 1952, India started community development program. Land reforms were started so that there is equitable distribution of assets. Ownership जो land asset है वो उसमें एक inequality कम हो जाए. Further, government focused on, let's say, education, health, all these areas were also part of that. Social justice, बाद में उसमें ये belief था that economy grow करेगी तो ये benefit अपने आप होंगे. Trickle down theory, remember, from 1950 till 1980s, the trickle down theory was accepted. Okay, so that is how the Planning Commission was created, and it was assisted by a body called NDC, now National Development Council. It was again headed by Prime Minister. So they will kind of help and augment it, the planning, and they will approve the 5-year plans. Now these 5-year plans, as I mentioned, will have 4 goals: modernization, growth, self-reliance, and social justice. Now let's see the 5-year plans. So one by one. First plan. Just 10 minutes listen. I'll complete the entire 5-year plan. First plan. This is a plan. The target was 2.1%. The achievement was 3.6%. Now this plan is also called as Harrod-Domar model. Harrod-Domar model is an investment model which believes that if investment is more in the economy, and if we are optimizing the inputs, that is the capital investment, there will be high growth. When there is a high growth, and if that growth is sustained for long, it will create multiplier effect in the economy in long run. So mainly it was about invest in the economy, also optimize the resources, maybe have a low, increase focus on the capital output ratio, and thereby make sure economy does well. So it was based on, it was an investment model, but in the beginning, जो पहला plan था, India was still in the stage of just thinking कि क्या plan होना चाहिए. So the plan focused more on the agriculture. So agriculture was focused. For example, government invested in Bhakra Nangal Dam, irrigation project, agriculture-based projects. But real planning started from the second plan. In the second plan, the second plan was from 1956 till 61. The target was 4.5%, achievement was 4.3%. It is also called as PC Mahalanobis model. It was based on rapid industrialization, heavy industries, and it was based on a policy called Industrial Policy Resolution, where PSUs will be at the commanding height of the economy. Now this is called the actual planning. The 5-year plan हमारा second plan से real में start हुआ था. It is called PC Mahalanobis model. PC Mahalanobis model was the think tank or brain behind the 5-year plans. Okay, the major statistician. He was also head of Indian Statistical Institute, which is in Calcutta. Okay, Kolkata. So that is how the first, second plan were there. The third plan was extension of the previous plan. It was also called as Gadgil Yojana, and again the focus was same, self-reliant and self-generating economy. Now in India, periodically we used to face problem, drought, agriculture productivity used to fluctuate. So that is where the focus was, how do we create maybe more sustainable agriculture. So agriculture focus hamesha tha, though all these plans, second, third, you saw heavy capital outlays that government made in the areas of industries. Government invested heavily in the industries. PSUs were created. There were regional approach was also there. Balanced development approach was there. The backward areas maybe industrialization to focus tha. And but इस time कुछ factors भी थे. For example, exogenous factors, wars were there. Periodically जो है पैसा नहीं था हमारे पास, तो India used to face balance of payment issues. Import was not coming. In fact, in the first few plan, heavy imports were taken, concessional loans were taken, help were taken from the countries like USA, USSR, UK. All these countries helped also. उनको लगा कि चलो इंडिया को हम हेल्प करते हैं, India will also give something in return in terms of maybe loyalty in some form. Okay, so that is it. But the third plan derailed suddenly because of the maybe mobilization of resources to matter the requirements of defense. So naturally war was the big factor, and because of the inflation also went very high, and that is where government believed that now जो 5-year plans उनको halt करना होगा, and 5-year plans were halted because of the post-war devastation and famine of 1965. Government announced plan holiday. उन्होंने कह दिया 3 साल annual plan रहेगा, and equal priority was given to agriculture and allied sector, because agriculture is a mainstay of the economy. Even today, majority people are in agriculture, and thereby it has to be developed. This is a time where new agricultural strategy was also envisioned. The Green Revolution, which later on laid the foundation of Green Revolution. High yield variety seeds, mechanization agriculture. How do we increase production of the food which are needed for the country? Because India had to depend on developed economies. Countries like USA ने एक PL 480 program था, under which they used to give food aid. So that food aid was very conditional in nature. वो, they used to manipulate us. So India felt that this cannot go for long, and that is where government focused on them. In order to improve the economy, government also, or improve the export, government ने devaluation of the economy किया 1966 में under Indira Gandhi. So devaluation happened. In devaluation, eventually it was to boost the export, because अब currency जब कमजोर हो जाएगा, your items will be cheaper, and that will boost the export. Then in 1969, this was also a phase where political थोड़ा सा instability आ गया था, transition of the power and the power struggle. So this struggle was also going on. So in 1969 to 74, the government came back in power, Indira Gandhi government, and target again was there, but it could not achieve the target. The reason was that there were again external factors, refugee crisis, war, but government here went more towards inward में भी और inward चले गए. Socialist approach और strong किया government ने. Government privatized the abolition of private purses, major nationalization of major banks हो गया. Green Revolution was started. Family planning program was started, and government focused on that. And the focus was how do we stabilize the economy, because the previous 5 plan and then previous 7-8 years were very tough. So government tried to stabilize it, but because of the factors like war, later on again inflation increase, food crisis, एक intermittent phenomena था because of drought, because of failure of monsoons. So monsoon failure, drought, these were always the challenges which were there. So it was important that we should create mechanism. This was also a time when government focused on food security. In 1965-66 अगर आप देखोगे, तो government started creation of Food Corporation of India. MSP was announced. Government focused on how do we increase the agri production in the country. Food crops of wheat, rice were prioritized. Wheat production बढ़ा later on in late 60s and 70s. 70s में real उसका impact नजर आया. The wheat production increased. In fact, it was called a wheat revolution instead of green revolution. So average जो yield था per capita, that went up. In some parts of India, India witnessed huge growth in the agricultural part. So that was around the, you can say, later part. But again, as I mentioned, the fifth plan 1974 में start हुआ, and this plan again had its own challenge, but this plan is also called as DP Dhar model, and they were focused on Garibi Hatao, employment, justice and agriculture, production and defense. Because of security factors, Garibi Hatao was basically poverty alleviation, slogan given by our erstwhile Prime Minister around that time. She believed that poverty alleviation should be there. 20-point program was started. 20-point program was started. Then trickle down approach was ineffective. ये समझ में आ गया, the trickle down is not working. पहली बात तो growth ही नहीं हो रहा है, तो trickle down कैसे होगा? Okay, so multiple things were put in. So this was 5-year plan, but in the fifth 5-year plan you can see we achieved our growth targets. But growth को आपने कम कर दिया. Targets were brought down from 5, 5.5, 5.6, 5.8 to 4.4, and we were able to achieve the target. But remember, हमारा base छोटा था, हम छोटे base से start कर रहे थे, तो even though target might look smaller, मतलब bigger, but actually it was relatively smaller. 1978 में government, 77 में जनता पार्टी government power में आई, and they stopped the 5-year plans. In fact, this 5-year plan is still 1978 only. क्योंकि 5-year है तो हम लोग 79 तक कहते हैं, but actually this plan was stopped in 1978, and from 78 to 80 rolling plan came into picture, where government, the Janata Party government came, but again it could not sustain it. 2 साल में government चली गई. It was a stage where आप भी planning ही करते रह गए, तब तक government चली गई, and then Indira Gandhi came back in power in 1980, and again the 5-year plan was adopted, and the existing rolling plan was rejected. Then in the 6th 5-year plan, अब ये जो decade है 85-90 and 85 to 80-85-90, now this was a decade where India did relatively better, because if you see both the targets, 5-year plans we achieved 5.2%, 5.7% target, 5%, 6%. So we were able to achieve both the target, but it came at the cost of heavy borrowings from the external sector. और गवर्नमेंट को समझ में आई गरीबी नहीं हट रही है, गरीबी की सिर्फ बात हो रही है, तो इंस्टेड ऑफ मेकिंग गवर्नमेंट स्कीम्स, लेट्स फोकस ऑन डायरेक्टेड अटैक ऑन पॉवर्टी. तो इफ यू विटनेस, थोड़ा आप और अंदर जाएंगे अगर आप 5-year plans के बाद भी, इफ यू स्टडी द मॉडल्स, यू विल फाइंड दैट गवर्नमेंट ने डिस्ट्रिक्ट पर गवर्नमेंट प्रोग्राम को इंप्लीमेंट करने की कोशिश करी. देयर वाज अ मोर फोकस ऑन डायरेक्टेड प्रोग्राम. आपने स्टेट्स को बाईपास किया, एंड यू गेव पावर एट डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल. डिस्ट्रिक्ट प्लानिंग कमिटीज वर क्रिएटेड. डिस्ट्रिक्ट में डेवलपमेंट नीचे कैसे तक पहुंचे, डिस्ट्रिक्ट रूरल डेवलपमेंट अथॉरिटीज क्रिएट की गई. So this was focused on a lot of government scheme like Integrated Rural Development Program, National Rural Employment Program, TRISEM. तो focus poverty employment पे था, and it was believed that नीचे हमें benefit पहुंचाना होगा. In fact, this was the time when a very famous statement was made by Rajiv Gandhi, who said that we send 1 rupee from Government of India, and by the time it reaches to ground level, it is 15 paisa. The very famous statement. So हमको डायरेक्टेड अटैक करना होगा, जो बीच में लीकेजेस हो रहे हैं, ट्रिकल डाउन नहीं हो पा रहा है, it has to be addressed and removed, and thereby this model was adopted, but it came at the cost of heavy borrowing. अच्छा, PSUs को ऑप्टिमाइज किया गया, PSU रिफॉर्म्स का प्रोसेस स्टार्ट हुआ, प्राइवेट सेक्टर को हमने थोड़ा सा पुश करना स्टार्ट किया. इन द लेटर आफ्टर 85 द लिबरलाइजेशन मेजर आल्सो स्टार्टेड. अगेन द फूड प्रोडक्शन वाज ऑलवेज अ प्रायोरिटी एरिया, एंड यहाँ पर गवर्नमेंट ने प्राइवेट सेक्टर को पुश दिया, एंड ऑफ कोर्स क्रिएशन ऑफ जॉब्स, अपॉर्चुनिटीज, and government schemes का जो रोल था वो और बढ़ना स्टार्ट हो गया. It also challenged Hindu rate of growth. Now what is Hindu rate of growth? Hindu rate of growth is a growth from 1950 till 1980. So India attained a growth rate of 3.5%. Now normally people who ask about Hindu rate of growth, so it was given by a very famous economist called Raj Krishna. Now it was believed that, now some people say it, why Hindu rate of growth? Some people say it in a way that, okay, there's nothing Hindu about it. It's just a growth rate which India attained, and India can be understood a land of Hind or Hindu, right? Land of Hind means it's a geographical, not religion, but it's a geographical, region. That is how you explain it. But other people who criticize, they said that it is mainly mocking the Indians or capacity of Indians, that Indians cannot grow. It is because of Indian way of doing things, Indian culture, Indian society. So Hindu rate of growth was questioned that way. तो आपको दोनों वर्जन मिलेंगे. People will justify Hindu rate of growth by this way, and there were people who will question that. But the same growth changed after 80s, and today we are attaining growth rate of 6%, 7% consistently. So this was Hindu rate of growth. Then again, in late 90s, there were multiple challenges. Challenges like there was a Gulf War. Okay, from 90, challenges in 1990s, you can say. Gulf War, there was a BOP crisis, the decline in exports, remittance economy came down, okay. So GDP growth एकदम plummet कर गया. There was political instability also around this time. If you see government from 1989, जो आपकी गवर्नमेंट थी वो कौन सी गवर्नमेंट थी? So Rajiv Gandhi government came in power in 1984, but 89 में new government came under VP Singh. So from 89 till 1991 there was political instability because two government came in between. From 1989 till 90, VP Singh, Vishwanath Pratap Singh, he was the finance minister of Rajiv Gandhi, who rebelled against Rajiv Gandhi. He said that government is corrupt based on a Bofors crisis. Okay, Bofors was India, you can say purchasing the Bofors cannons. So it was unka hi jo unka deputy tha, that person rebelled against him and left the Congress party, questioned the government, and then they formed a Janta Dal. All the opposition parties came together, made Janta Dal, and VP Singh became the Prime Minister. This was also an era where India witnessed the rise of a new political party called BJP, okay, which was a new party that was created in 1980. But in 1984, they were washed out. उनके सिर्फ 2 MPs की सीट थी. But in 89, the numbers increased. It was close to 80. I don't remember the exact numbers. So BJP came into power, and BJP supported VP Singh Janta Dal, and that is how Janta Dal came into power, and VP Singh became the Prime Minister. But that government was short-lived for hardly 10-11 months, and VP Singh pushed his own agenda also. For example, this was an era where reservation policy was pushed, Mandal Commission was put, reservation was implemented. Then for some reason VP Singh government had to fall because their support that they were getting had to be taken back because of political differences. And again, with the support of Congress, a very short-lived government under Chandrasekhar came in 1990, and in 1991 elections were announced. So again, these were 2 years of very unstable or political instability was visible. Now when there is a political instability, government decision नहीं ले पाती है, it is more about you can't take a long term. आप यही सोच रहे हो कि हम बचें कैसे, instead of thinking about how we run the economy. So for any economy to function, political stability is very important, okay, because आप decision तभी ले पाओगे, and country will go under the political stability approach only, and that is where we saw the growth of and then the Congress party came back in power. There was assassination of Rajiv Gandhi, so he died. So in the Congress, PV Narasimha Rao became the Prime Minister, and this was an era where India also witnessed these challenges. And under the backdrop of this, India went to IMF. IMF ने कहा you have to invest, and so you have to change the approach, and the rollback of state has to happen. And this was called you can say structural adjustment program हमने किया. We reformed the economy, and India adopted a U-turn. India ने लिया from the socialist economy towards the capitalist economy, and there was a LPG era or reforms, shift towards indicative planning, new economic policy was adopted, and ये already हमने लिखा है क्या क्या focus रहेगा. Private sector में government will have a limited role, and government will allow the economy to be run by the private sector. वो धीरे धीरे होगा, रातों रात नहीं होगा, but it will be in a slow and calibrated manner. So I'll be discussing these reforms also. Just hold on for now. So these were the reforms that can be understood. Then 9th 5-year plan, 9th, 10th, 11th was the extension of previous plan. If you see the private sector taking the lead, okay, focus on investment, focus on technology transfer from foreign countries, or import liberalization measure were there, export को promotion किया गया, boost किया गया, banking reforms, taxation reforms, capital market reforms, okay, n number of reforms were brought in just to make sure that economy is able to adapt to the new era of maybe opening of the economy. So this was a strategy where economy opened, एक open strategy approach था. We started aligning with the countries of the world, whether it is Southeast Asia, तो उधर foreign policy में look east policy आ गया. We started collaborating with the countries like USA and other countries. So this was the era that witnessed. So this was you can say a government taking the lead in agriculture or social welfare, and other areas में private को हमने lead दिया. This was also era where in 1997 में there was an Asian financial crisis. Okay, Asian financial crisis. और उससे थोड़ा इकोनॉमी डिरेल हुई. इनफैक्ट टारगेट जो था आप देखो, वी अटेंड फर्स्ट टाइम इंडिया अटेंड अ ग्रोथ रेट ऑफ मोर देन 6%. ओके, सो दैट वाज अ रिफॉर्म के बाद तुरंत आपने हाई ग्रोथ अटेन किया. अभी रिफॉर्म कर ही रहे हो तभी ग्रोथ आपने अटेन किया. सो इट वाज नॉट, इट वाज लाइक अ मिरेकल स्टोरी यू कैन से. देन इन स्पाइट ऑफ द क्राइसिस, इन द एशियन फाइनेंशियल क्राइसिस, इंडिया का ग्रोथ अच्छा था. एंड यहाँ पर गवर्नमेंट का फोकस एजुकेशन, हेल्थ एंड सोशल सेक्टर एरियाज पे रहा. Also this was an era when Operation Shakti was conducted. हमने न्यूक्लियर टेस्ट किया. Kargil war was there. So there were some challenges also in this phase. Then the government, but this was a reform era. Government brought अच्छा 90s का जो रिफॉर्म था उसको फर्स्ट जनरेशन रिफॉर्म कहा जाता था. And then the second generation reforms also came into it. अभी मैं उसके बारे में डिस्कस करूंगा. Then the 10th, 11th and 12th plan were on the similar lines where government focused on focus on including the in improving the role of private sector and government taking a back seat. और उसमें हमारे जैसे disinvestment policy, again government का अपना अपना approach था, but more or less they were on the similar lines. And till 12th 5-year plan government का अगर आप देखोगे तो targets 6.5, 5.4, 8.7, 7.6%, 9%, 8%, 8%. 12th 5-year plan का growth का डेटा आया नहीं, but ये मैंने अपने हिसाब से डाल दिया. 6.5% गवर्नमेंट ने अटेन किया होगा. ओके, सो प्लानिंग कमीशन, बट व्हेन द न्यू गवर्नमेंट केम इन 2014, they believed that planning commission cannot function in the new era of this open economy model, and thereby it is important that we create new organization. And Niti Aayog came into picture, and planning commission was stopped, and Niti Aayog, which focused on cooperative federalism, and from the top down approach government said let's focus on the bottom up approach. It is other thing that bottom up approach 1990 indicative planning में already आ चुका था. bottom up approach तो पहले ही भी आ गया था. And that is how it can be understood. So what were the achievements of the planning if we say in the last 78 years? Okay, multiple GDP increase, per capita increase, savings, investment, better improvement, industrial growth, self sufficiency, forex बढ़ा है आपका, there is advancement in the field of education, health. Now you might say कि सर अभी बहुत कुछ अचीव करना है, but definitely incrementally हो रहा है, लेकिन हो रहा है. Trajectory is improving every day. You can't say that we are not improving from the last year. Yes, you might question the pace or can it be bettered, can it be improved. वो सवाल आप जरूर पूछ सकते हैं. Okay, then infrastructure development, India's global recognition of India's service sector, and what we जो आप देख रहे हो last 30 years or 20 years में, that is a growth story of that. But on the flip side there are challenges also. So when we try to see on the other part, we still have more than 20% people who are poor, or maybe you can say 14-15%. आज भी अगर जो latest data देखें तो 15% लोग आज भी poor हैं. Okay, we could not create jobs. India is a country with huge population, huge demographics. So it is a demographic dividend where young population should be employed, given a remuneration which is qualitative in nature. Okay, so jobless growth आज देखने को मिल रही है. Economy is growing but jobs are not being created. Then incomplete land reforms in spite of all the efforts. Third is ineffective in curbing black money. हम black money को curb नहीं कर पाए हैं. Concentration of economic power, poor quality of education, regional imbalances, centralized nature of planning था. In spite of saying that planning commission ने track बदल लिया है, because उसका root जो था वो centralized nature में ही था. So somewhere you could see the visibility of the centralized nature as well. Okay,